Hello everybody and welcome back to another My Porch Prints tutorial. Today we are going to be working on a project inspired by our Just Journal journal prompts, which today is number 7, which is layers. So we're going to be making some petal pockets. And this project was originally inspired by a photo I saw on Instagram by Creating My Renaissance, where they did like this really pretty layered rose. So I wanted to try something similar, but just putting my own twist on it. So I'm going to be using one of the pages from our rose letter journal kit, and I'm printing out 2 of them to start, just to show you something really simple you can do. You can add more layers if you want, which we will be doing, but you can also keep it really simple if you'd like. So taking that second page, I'm going to cut the rose out, and we are going to be cutting it into quarters, so 4 different pieces. This does make really small petal pockets, so if you want them to be a little bit larger, you could cut them into 3 instead of 4. Alright, and once you are done with that, I'm going to be grabbing this scrap piece of paper I have to glue them to. Now, I would recommend using a piece of paper that is printed front and back. Otherwise, you'll see later, you can kind of see the white inside the pocket. I didn't really think about that. I was just sort of making this whole process up as I went, so hopefully you can learn from my mistakes. So do print your paper front and back for this part. And for the petals, I'm going to be adding a little bit of Fabri-Tac glue around along the straight edge of the petal, and you want to keep it as thin and close to the edge as possible, so that gives you as much room as you can get for a pocket. And then we are going to glue that down onto our piece of paper and then cut around the petal, again being careful not to move it too much because you want as much space as you can for your pocket. It's just cutting around that edge there, and I'm going to be taking some Distress Oxide in the color Victorian Velvet and going over all of those edges just to hide any white that's showing and help make the illusion a little bit more seamless. And then we're going to be repeating that process with all 4 petals. Alright, now that you're done with that, you could just stop here, but I'm going to go ahead and add several more layers. So I went and printed that image out again 2 more times. Again, cutting out the flower, and then we're just going to place one to the side, and with the second one we are going to cut it in half, just like this. And following the same sort of process as we did for the little petals, we are going to be gluing these ones down to the paper, leaving the petal side open and adding glue to just the straight side and sort of halfway up the petal. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. So I'm just going to add glue just a little bit, very close to the edge, and going sort of like halfway up like this. So that'll give you open room for your pocket. So doing that on both sides and then along the straight edge here, again staying as close as we can, and then gluing that down to our paper like this. And again doing the same thing to that other half, and then cutting those out. And again going in with that Distress Oxide, just hiding any white edges. Alright, now that we have all 3 layers here, we can go ahead and start assembling. So for this very first one, I'm going to be gluing it down right on top of the flower, matching up as close as I can here. And again, going with the glue, I'm just going to go along the edge and the bottom, so about halfway up the flower, and then right along the bottom of the rose here. Trying to stay as close to that edge as we can. And then I'm just going to press this down right on top of our image, just like this, and this is going to give us the largest pocket that we have, although because we will be using a brad in the center, that will kind of limit your space. I didn't really think about that when I first made this, so if you wanted to, you could just stop here and just have this one flower pocket and leave it just as is. If you want to keep it really simple, that's perfectly fine, but I'm going to go ahead and keep layering. So to finish this part off, I'm going to be using a small piece of ephemera. You could use a bone folder or anything just to sort of open that pocket up and make sure that it's got room in there for tucking in little ephemera pieces and nothing is glued down where I don't want it. Alright, and then starting with those larger halves here, I am going to sort of layer this just to sort of see how it would look. Again, I was making all this up as I went. I wasn't sure if this illusion was going to come together or not, so feel free to experiment a little bit and try something different. If you want to try different colors in your layers or using different flowers, go right ahead. This is just kind of what I did. And because of how they layer, the illusion isn't perfect, but I think it's pretty close. So we're going to go ahead and just roll with it. Before pinning everything down, I am going to use a bone folder just to open up each of those pockets a little bit, since it'll be easier to do that before everything is assembled. So if you want to do that same process, go ahead. And here you can see what I'm talking about with that white showing. So again, make sure to print your papers front and back if you want to hide that a little bit and make it look more finished. And next I'm going to take an awl and poke a small hole right in the center of my rose image here, being careful not to stab myself. And then with these halves, I'm going to be taking a micro hole punch and punching right in the center towards the bottom of the pocket like this. And I'm going to do that to both halves here. So here's a close-up of what that looks like. And then we're going to do the same thing to the small quarter pieces, but instead of going on the straight edge, we're going to go right into the center of each of the points, just like that. And we're going to do that to all of the little petals. Alright, and now we can go ahead and load them onto our brad. So I'm just going to start with the very first petal on the first layer, and I do find that it helps to kind of keep the petals in order of the image so that the illusion is a little more complete. So try to do that when you are assembling here. So just going to add all 4 of the smaller petals, and then we will go in with the larger halves next. So those will go on behind the smaller petals here. And it doesn't necessarily matter which order these ones go in, they're kind of hidden anyway. And you should be able to sort of see how these petals will start to rotate on the brad like this, so it's starting to come together. So to finish it off, we're just going to go ahead and punch it through the center of our page with that little hole that we made earlier and flatten out those 2 little prongs here. Alright, and there you go. Now all of your little petals should be assembled, and they should be able to rotate and sort of swing individually, just sort of freely turning around that little center wheel here, just like this. And on its own, I think it's already really pretty, so you could just, again, stop here if you want to, but I'm going to load my pockets with some little stickers I have. Since the pockets are really small, I needed something small to put inside of them, so I'm using these little butterfly stickers that we had on hand. I'm not exactly sure where we picked these up from. I just sort of found them in a drawer, so you feel free to use whatever you'd like. You could print out your own stickers or whatever. But I'm going to go ahead and use some tweezers and just add each of the little stickers into the pockets. So using larger butterflies in the larger pockets and smaller ones in the smaller petal pockets. And when it's done, you shouldn't be able to see any of the stickers, and they should just sort of hang out in their individual pockets like this. So you can just rotate the petals around to grab whichever stickers you want. Alright, so taking our journal that we made from the beginning of the journal prompts sort of series that we're doing, I'm going to go ahead and glue that page in. And if you're not sure which video I'm talking about, I will link that down below if you want to make this journal too. And then grabbing a label, this one is actually from our very vintage journal kit, and I'm going to go around the edge of that with some of that Victorian velvet ink, and then stamp some little dates and numbers on here and like a little image using the Distress Oxide in the color Ground Espresso, kind of lightly going over the edge here. And I'm also going to go around the background just a little bit to make it look a little more distressed and vintage. Again, just with whatever was left on the stamp. And then adding another brad here, I'm going to glue this label down. And this should finish our page for today's video. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you got some inspiration, and we will see you next time. Bye!